In Russia, before the revolution that put Stalin in power, scientists were eagerly studying the use of hypnotism and parapsychology. Throughout the 30s, these experiments continued but ceased abruptly when Stalin took power. The Soviet Union banned study of parapsychology as an attempt to undermine the doctrines of the state. During the Cold War in the 1960s, a story in Science and Life, a French magazine, reported that the United States was employing experiments in telepathy to communicate with submarines. This story shook the military awake, and again the USSR was in the race to learn of the paranormal. The Soviet Union began to use all means at their disposal to not only achieve the same result that they believed the Americans were after, but also find new ways to use and teach psychic ability. Even though the Soviet scientist Professor Vasilev continuously published articles earlier, it wasn't until the report of the American telepathy study that the Soviets showed interest and possible uses for psychic potential for the military. They regrouped and began studies all through the country and even in Czechoslovakia. The experiments studied not just telepathy but also clairvoyance, bionics, dowsing, hypnotism, and telekinesis. There were other studies and all geared to military use. The benefit of dowsing in military action actually became clear during the Vietnam conflict when the United States military forces used it to find the tunnels and caches of the Viet Cong. Both the United States and Russia studied telepathic messages as a backup method for communication for astronauts. While the Soviets first attempted this experiment in 1971, Edgar Mitchell made 150 different attempts during the Apollo 14 mission to the Moon. He tried to send his thoughts back to the Earth. The results proved that this was possible to transmit thoughts through the vastness of space. During the studies into parapsychology, Russians gathered up much of the German studies conducted during World War II. The Nazis were vigilant into the study of the occult and even mysticism. One influence was actually a Russian female known as Madame Blavatsky, who is given recognition as the leader in the New Age movement. There was a huge public race to outer space in the 60s and 70s, but only a few knew of the race to inner space between the two Cold War nations. Russia experimented in remote viewing and telekinesis. Many of those that learned psi techniques used breathing techniques derived from yoga. Viktor Adamenko, a member of the Soviet biophysical team, trained people in the art of telekinesis using hypnosis and a dielectric cube as a source of energy. Eventually, these people learned to charge their own body and eliminate the need for the aids. One of the most important studies came from Roman, a physician whose credentials are impeccable. He studied psychic self-regulation and found that you could influence your body with thought. None of the subjects trained received selection based on any particular skill, which means that the ability to learn Psi is within the reach of all. It simply takes practice and the right training to shorten the time for this ultimate goal.
Conrad Raw is an expert in practical techniques for personal and spiritual development. He is the author of Forbidden Secrets of Personal and Energetic Development. Visit his website for a free newsletter filled with tons of great tips and advice. www.greaterhumanpotential.com